Last time I did a video about a game from my childhood, I had a little story involving my brother. But this time we're talking about Battle City, and that game has a different story involving someone else in my family. My dad. As I mentioned before, I grew up in the early 2000s in a fairly rural area of Portugal, so my parents weren't really aware or didn't know much about video games until us kids came along, and they were never really interested in playing them. But one time around 20 years ago, my dad was working in France, and he didn't really spend a lot of time at home, so to try and mitigate that, one time we decided to take a little vacation and stay with him for a couple of weeks. Now, he was still working, so I would spend a lot of time playing games at home. We had one of those Chinese bootleg consoles that had like a bunch of NES games, the Famicoms as they're called, and I would spend a lot of time playing on this console. I remember this unit we had like 23, 26 games or something, but the ones that I really remember were a clone of Super Mario Brothers called Super Panda Brothers, and you can kind of guess what was different about that one. They just replaced the Mario and Luigi sprites with pandas. And there was a clone of this game, Battle City. I don't really remember the name of the clone of this game. All I can recall is that the enemy tank sprites were replaced to kind of look like bugs. Bootleg games are weird. Anyway, out of those, Battle City was really the only game that could hold my dad's attention. So whenever he would get home, even sometimes really late at night, I would try to get him to play these games with me. You know, I did try to get him into Super Panda Brothers, but inevitably we would always end up playing the tank game. And I have very fond memories of that time because this is just how I bonded with my dad a lot. We spent a lot of time playing this game together, and we had like a shared goal, and it was just really fun to play, and it was meaningful because it was a way to spend time with my dad. So, I really have fond memories of that. And I remember many years later, when I was already way more into gaming and he didn't, he couldn't really match that interest. I remember one time I tried to look up what that game was because I didn't really know at the time. So I tried to look up what the game was and find a way to play it on my computer. And we played it that way, with controllers, I think, or maybe just a keyboard, I don't remember. But we played it together again, and that was great. This game is just so engraved in my mind, and I have great memories of it. So I've always also kind of wished that there was like a modern version of it, something that plays almost exactly the same but looks more modern. I kind of wish that existed. But this story is getting pretty long, and I've barely talked about the game itself. And that's because, honestly, there isn't a lot to say. Battle City is a super simple arcade-style game. You play as one tank, or two tanks if you're playing multiplayer, and you have to defend your base, which is represented by an eagle at the bottom of the screen, from a swarm of oncoming tanks that spawn at the top of the screen. Now these stages have things like, bricks or like metal walls. I actually don't know what they're supposed to represent. I just always refer to the breakable walls as bricks and the unbreakable walls as metal, and then there's water and grass as well. You just kind of have to navigate the sort of maze and destroy the oncoming tanks as they, come at you. And when you do, there are different kinds of tanks, and there are some that don't like flash in a different color. And those, when you defeat them, they actually give you power-ups. So the power-up will pop up somewhere on the map, and you can go and pick it up. And those can be things like upgrading your tank's weapon, giving you an extra life, reinforcing the walls around your base. Just things like that can give you benefits. These aren't really in the base game, but in the bootleg versions that I played over the years, I do remember some different power-ups that don't actually exist. Like, there's this one where you could immediately upgrade your tank to the maximum level. And there was another bootleg where the enemies could actually pick up the power-ups as well, so you had to be extra careful to make sure that they wouldn't get like the highest level tank, for example, because then they could cut through metal and it becomes very difficult to beat them. So those are some interesting variants of it. But back to the real Battle City game, I was pretty surprised to find out when doing research for this video that Battle City actually never released outside of Japan on the original NES. Like, it was a Japan-only game. And the only way that we got to play it here, the way that I played it, was through those Chinese bootleg consoles. It's pretty interesting to find that out. And actually, Battle City isn't even just a standalone game, it's actually part of a series. It's a sequel to an arcade game called Tank Battalion, and a few years later it actually got its own sequel called Tank Force. And you know, what I was saying earlier about wanting a more modern version of Battle City with better graphics, I kind of have that right here with Tank Force. Like, look at this. This game looks great. Like, the graphics on this are way cooler. But it is essentially the same game. You have the enemy tanks, you got the power-ups. Like, you can clearly see it's the same thing, but just looks a lot nicer. And I feel like maybe I should play this. Like, I might actually maybe even stream this for a little bit if I can figure out how to play this on a computer today. I did find like an unofficial 3D remake of Battle City, but I'm not sure I can download this without getting like a million viruses on my computer, so maybe I'll save that for another time. I don't feel super confident in this. It also looks kind of weird because like the graphics are still very much the NES graphics, but just with 3D rendering, it's strange. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about Battle City for a bit. I did stream a little bit of this game last week, and I had a bunch of fun with it. Like, it's the magic from playing this game as a kid. It's still there. So I think I might be revisiting it. I really should probably play Tank Force, maybe on stream. I think that could be a fun thing to do. But anyway, thank you so much for watching so far. If you like the video, please consider giving it a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.